Hey Bewitchlings, Tiffany here on Bewitching.Bemused. Today, because we've already talked about cleansing your space, we are going to be talking about cleansing yourself. In my opinion, every foundational magical practice should have some sort of self-cleansing, whether it's routine or it's something that kind of packs more of a punch. You should definitely have something that's a routine though. The need for an uncrossing could come from something as dramatic as somebody intentionally cursing you to something as mundane as, you know, your grumpy neighbor just like mean, like every time they see you, they think something mean about you. And that just builds up over time, or it could even be just a buildup of negative energy. The various different ways that somebody can be afflicted by negative energy or an outright psychic attack are very numerous. And I mean, you could write a whole book on that. In fact, there have been books written on that. So while I do encourage you to take the time to stop and try to figure out what the source of your issue is, because that can help you in the long run for preventative care and for creating your plan of attack to rid yourself of your affliction, we're going to save that for another video. Now, also for the sake of brevity throughout this video, I'm going to be using the word curse as sort of a catch-all to cover any baneful magic, so curses, hexes, jinxes, etc. Today we're going to cover when you should cleanse, methods of cleansing, and of course, to follow all of that up, you need to know how to protect yourself in order to prevent issues in the future. As a safety disclaimer, magic should never, ever, ever replace actual help from a doctor, whether that is from a physical malady or from a mental health issue. If it is causing you suffering, if it is being a detriment to your quality of life, please absolutely seek out professional medical help and just use magic as supplementation. So when should you cleanse? When you are the victim of a psychic attack, or when you are in need of cleansing for even that, or like I said, just that buildup of stagnant or negative energy, or kind of that buildup of somebody like sending kind of more malicious thoughts your way, even if they're not intentionally trying to curse you, even if they are not a magical practitioner. The symptoms of that can come on very gradually to the point that you kind of don't really notice what's happening, especially with a targeted curse. You may not realize that you're cursed until it just, so much bad luck, so many maybe physical ailments, fatigue, some depression, different things like that build up to the point that all these horrible things are happening in your life and you're feeling all kinds of horrible ways, and there is no other logical explanation. Additionally, a deliberate psychic attack, so somebody sending a curse your way, often has the exact same symptoms as those more mundane things, or those more, I didn't cleanse enough and it just kind of built up from being around toxic people or in toxic spaces. Which is kind of good news, because just because you need a cleansing doesn't necessarily mean that there's somebody out there to get you, but it can also make it a little bit difficult to figure out the source. Oh, and then there's that other way you can find yourself in a cross state, which is when you do it to yourself through long-term negative self-talk and destructive behavior. There is also the fact that, let's be real, things that might seem like you're in a cross state or you've been cursed may actually just be a coincidental string of bad luck, or you could be bringing it on yourself. And I don't mean in ways of the negative self-talk and destructive behavior, but more self-sabotage. Now, it's always much nicer when you have someone to blame or something to blame versus just like shaking your fist at the universe for all of its mysteries and or, you know, looking inward and going like, I could have tried harder here, or I could have done better there, or I need to improve here, I need to do this thing, or I need to stop doing this thing. That is the reality of life. Sometimes we like to say like, it's magic, someone's cursed me, when in reality, we're kind of just standing in our own way. This is why I say it's good to figure out the source of your cross state, because if you recognize, oh, this is not a cross state, this is just me, you can start to fix those things. The other part of this that is really good news is you can always cleanse yourself, and the worst that'll happen is if you did not need it, if you were not in a cross state, nothing will happen. So it's not like doing this when you don't need to might cause, you know, yourself or somebody else to get hurt. So yeah. Now there are times when you should absolutely definitely perform a self-cleansing. But because, like I said, it doesn't hurt to do it when you don't need it, it is good to practice this as sort of routine maintenance, because you never know what you might just be kind of picking up. It's the same as cleansing your home. You just never know what you're picking up or what other people are passing onto you or into your space. But what do I mean by times when you should absolutely, definitely perform a self-cleansing? Well, I will tell you. Just know that some of these might be the symptom of a curse or a psychic attack, or sometimes they are just events that happen in life that could create negative energy. And you're still gonna wanna rid yourself of that negative energy anyway, even if it's not being caused by a cross state. So the times that you will absolutely want to perform a self-cleansing ritual is after an illness, injury, bouts of depression, or something similar, after a string of bad luck, after a difficult or highly stressful life event such as death, breakup or divorce, or financial struggles, or again, something similar, after being around an extremely toxic individual, after an extremely heated argument, if you've been feeling fatigued, low in energy, sluggish, or foggy-brained, and during a liminal time when you have ended one phase of your life and are about to begin a new one, because this is a great time to create a fresh start. So those would be when you're moving, you're going to start a new job, a new relationship, after graduation, or even during a birthday or a new year. Jumping on to methods of cleansing. I'm going to be providing multiple types of self-cleansing rituals that you can do for yourself, and I highly encourage you to, as much as you can, experiment with all of them. You might find that some work better for you than others, some might work better with certain types of energies than others, and you'll also begin to kind of figure out good combinations that you can use of them in order to prescribe the right style for the right occasion. So if you're simply doing a cleansing ritual during a dark moon as part of your monthly regimen, you might just sit down, meditate, contact, reach out to deity, and say, ask them for a blessing and to cleanse you, sort of thing. Whereas if you feel you've truly been cursed, you might want to call on deity or spirit and ask for their guidance, ask for them to kind of give you backup and provide cleansing, but also perform a full egg cleanse or and a ritual bath. It might also, if it's kind of just your monthly maintenance, it might be something you don't want to bother spirit with. So do you want to do smoke cleansing? Do you want to do sound cleansing? Anyway, you get the idea. Let's move on. Also, keep in mind, if you are in a cross state, you should never panic. First of all, if you are running around panicking, your panic is just feeding all of the other negative energies that are around you. You are adding more negative energy to that, which is just going to make it worse. In addition to that, if you are targeted by a curse, oftentimes the purpose, at least one of the purposes of a curse, is to provoke fear in its target, in its victim. So don't give in to that. And finally, in an emergency, the last thing you ever want to do is panic. We all know that. I think we've all learned that from a very young age. You don't panic. You don't go running, screaming into the streets. You don't go shoving people out of your way. Nope. You take a deep breath. You move slowly and calmly, and you figure out what is the most effective plan of action. You can't just freak out over everything. And especially if you've been cursed. Okay, well, you've already been cursed. So just take a deep breath, sit down, figure out what is it going to take step by step. And again, it's about the effectiveness versus just let's do every single thing and freak out and possibly make it worse. Well, I hate to say that you would make it worse. That's not necessarily true, but it does make it a lot harder to make it better. And finally, when you are uncrossing yourself, you've probably already figured this out at this point, it's a good idea to also do a cleansing of your space, because energy, especially negative energy, it leaves a residue. It's very sticky. And so you're seeping it off everywhere. And then you cleanse yourself, you get all nice and clean, and then you move through your space, you work in your space, and it's clinging back to you. So cleanse your space. So here are your options for self-cleansing. Your first option is smoke cleansing. Now, while white sage bundles are the most popular for this, you can also use things like rosemary bundles, cedar, sagebrush, or lavender. Those are just a few of the many options out there, and all of those will do the trick. Now, if you have a friend who is a magical practitioner, they know what they're doing, it is very helpful if you can kind of just stand in place and let them do it for you, but you can absolutely do this alone. I like to start at the head and work my way down, just kind of going in circles. This is not lit right now because but you get the idea of the general motion. You should be going much slower and in smaller increments than I am, maybe like an inch down each turn around. Now, as you work down your body, you know, the torso is pretty easy to do, the front of the torso. The back can be a little bit more difficult. What I recommend you do is hold it like so, burning and on top. Hold it at the base of your spine and just slowly move it side to side like that. And let the smoke drift up your back and up the back of your neck. And of course, as you're working, you know, around, you want to make sure to get all the way around your limbs, just wind it around and really just go nice and slow as you do this process. Now, personally, I like to take my bundle while it's still lit, place it in my cauldron or a heat-proof container, set that on the floor, and just step through it a few times just to, I don't know, it feels like a nice way of sort of completing it. This is a great method for either basic maintenance or as part of a larger ritual. The next one are sprays. Sprays are really useful if you cannot do smoke cleansing. I know a lot of people can't inhale smoke, or they can't burn things where they live, or they have pets or children with sensitive lungs. That's absolutely okay. You never, ever, ever have to use smoke. So sprays are really great for that. Sprays are also wonderful for kind of when you're on the go. You know, maybe you just met somebody who gave you a weird vibe and you can kind of just spray in your hand and because you shook their hand or something, right? Now, there are various sprays on the market that you can purchase that are safe for your skin and for clothing, or you can, of course, make your own. You can just fill a bottle with water or vodka. You can then infuse it with purification herbs and essential oils and some crystals, but make sure, of course, that they are not water soluble. Or you can use rose water, Florida water, or holy water, whatever holy water looks like to you. I know it's different for different people, so, you know, whatever your thing is. Next up is sound cleansing. I love sound cleansing. It does get a little loud, so you'll want to do it during the daytime. This is another great alternative for smoke cleansing. You can use it on yourself or your space. That's one of the beautiful things about it. It's very kind of multi-purpose. Now, I did do a full video on sound cleansing, so I'm not gonna belabor the point here, but I will link that for you down below in the description box. You could also use an uncrossing or spell breaker candle. Now, here's the catch with these. They are, given the name, used for breaking spells, curses, hexes, jinxes as part of a ritual, and they are really excellent at what they do. However, you will want to add some other cleansing method on top of this to rid yourself of any leftover residue or symptoms. Then there's the ritual bath. Just like smoke cleansing, this is one of the most popular forms of self-cleansing. And despite the name, they can be done in a shower stall. Ritual baths can be as simple or as complex as you want. Some people prefer to just soak in a salt bath. Nothing wrong with that. Whereas other people, you know, get a little more complex. They'll create an herbal infusion that they'll pour into their bath. They'll light incense. They'll speak an incantation. They'll, you know, have a ring of white candles or black candles all around the tub. It's sort of up to you. And again, you want to experiment because it sort of depends on what's the intensity of these afflictions that you're dealing with. I'm going to give you some instructions, and I should have told you earlier about this with the spray. As usual, there is an article that is same content as this video coming out at the same time. I will link that down below in the description box. It makes it a little bit easier to follow specific instructions. So if you want to create a bath infusion, you're going to take 4 cups of water. They can be tap water, purified water, lunar, solar, rainwater. The choice is really yours. I know a lot of people recommend solar for cleansing properties or rainwater for a cleansing bath ritual, but I honestly just like to let my intuition guide me. So put those 4 cups in a pot add at least 3 different purification herbs. So a few options for this are going to be rosemary, white sage, lemongrass, bay leaves, so on. Bring it to a boil and allow it to boil for 3 minutes. Then take it off the heat and allow it to steep for at least 2 hours. Once it's done, you can strain out all of the solids, all of the herbs, all of the chunkies from it, but you really don't have to. You can put them right into your tub. So start to fill your tub up halfway. When you're ready to go, or fill it up part way, dump the infusion in, and then climb in and allow the tub to fill up from the tap the rest of the way. You're going to want to make sure you soak for at least 20 minutes, and be sure to dunk your head underwater at least once, or you can dip a washcloth in the water and kind of, make sure. I think it's easier if you've got hair, especially really thick hair like mine, it's easier to just dunk. But if you don't want to do that for whatever reason, just use the washcloth to get wet, but do make sure, don't do it on a day when you're like, my hair's styled, ready to go for tomorrow. You're gonna want to wet down the hair too. If you're using a shower stall, bring your pot of your infusion into the shower with you. Turn on the water, especially if the infusion has gotten cold at this point. You can mix it with the running water, so stand on the running water to stay warm, and then slowly dump it over your head or from the neck down. Neck down is fine. Just make sure to get your back. And then at the end of it, once you've done that, again, nice and slow, be patient with it. Take a washcloth, leave a little bit at the bottom, dip the washcloth in there, and use that to kind of wipe down any areas that would have gotten mist from it, so like underarms, things like that. Any areas that would have gotten mist from dumping it, make sure to wipe those down with the infusion soaked into the washcloth. Now, finally, this isn't exactly like a bath per se, but I would hate to miss this one. Running water, natural running water, will do the exact same thing as a ritual bath, and I'll admit, a bath can be really relaxing, but going into natural water for this process, there's something else entirely about that just makes me feel very taken care of by the earth and by nature, and it just makes me feel really connected. So that's another really good way, is kind of swim out. Again, make sure to dunk. The water needs to be moving water though, so like a river or a stream or the ocean, and just let it run over you. Next up is the egg cleanse. Now, if you're vegan, don't fast forward just yet. The egg cleanse can be done with a lemon or a lime, and it very often is in several different cultures. Now, I love the egg cleanse. I did do a whole video on this already though, just like with the sound cleansing, so I'll link that down below instead of just rambling on that topic all over again. Next, you could seek a professional if you can afford one and one is local to you, and you have found that, you've done a bunch of different cleansing methods yourself and it's not working, and you have maybe hopefully identified the source and realized it's not you. You might want to see a spiritual cleanser. Now, keep in mind, a spiritual cleanser is not the same thing as an energy healer. But, and I say that because energy healers, at least in my area, there's a lot more energy healers than there are spiritual cleansers. But again, very often the two practices go hand in hand. So if you can only find energy healers, it doesn't hurt to hit them up and say, hey, do you also do spiritual cleansing? But please, please, please do your research. There are way too many scam artists out there. So just find somebody with a little bit of a reputation, some reviews that are verified. Hopefully it's somebody that maybe a friend has referred you to, or it's somebody that you already know. Next, and I already mentioned this one, is call on spirit. Whether spirit to you is deity, ancestors, spirits of the land, guides, or any other entity. And whether to you calling to them is, just a simple prayer, or if it's sitting down and performing a summoning and having, luxurious and really nice offerings for them. And again, it just sort of depends on your relationship with spirit or with that entity. And it also just sort of depends on, how much are you asking them to do? I can't say that all patrons are going to be down to always help you out when you need it, but a lot of them, that's what they're there for, because they're there for you to lean on them. That's why they want to be your patron. That's why you have built that relationship. You've invested things into it, and they're going to invest things in you. Next is sunbathing. This one gets overlooked a lot because it seems so simple. The sun has healing and purification, energy, and powers. I I think we all know that. So sometimes it almost seems too simple that you can just like go lay in the yard, take a little nap and sunbathe for a little while, flip over. So, you know, the whole body gets cleansed. But that is a really good way just to cleanse yourself. Just do not forget the sunscreen. I mean, I say this as a ginger, but really everybody, wear your sunscreen. The next two, while they can help cleanse, they are also good ways to prevent the buildup of negative energy. So they kind of go into this section as well as the final section. So the first one is journaling. It's a great way to vent out negative emotions so you're not holding on to them and letting that manifest negative energy around you. On its own, it's a great preventative method, but as part of the cleansing process, you might want to use this in conjunction with something else. If it's really, really, really bad, you're feeling a lot of really heavy negative emotions, what I find it's best to do is instead of journaling in a journal, take a single sheet of paper, write it all out, journal it all out, and then you can rip it up and throw it away. You can rip it up and burn it. You can, I wouldn't do this on regular like printer paper, but kind of depending on what you wrote on, if it's tissue or something, you could always flush it down the toilet. There's lots of different ways to dispose of it, but it's just this process of cleansing yourself of these negative emotions. You might still feel them, but hopefully they've been eased. And hopefully a lot of the negativity that's kind of been around you because of them, you are banishing away from yourself. And the final one is meditation. That's another way to let go of things so you are not dwelling. It's a great way to allow yourself to accept or release things. So again, preventative, you're not allowing your emotions to build up negativity around you. And much like the process of ripping up the paper, you can have a meditative session as part in conjunction with another bigger cleansing effort where you allow those negative emotions and those negative thoughts to pop up into your head, and then you just release them, let them go. If you want to kind of visualize that as something as like a black smoke, maybe, or just like, I don't know, something that represents negative energy for you, as you're exhaling it, and let it just disperse and leave you. That's a great way to handle it, but you don't have to. Just know that that's what you're doing. You are exhaling that negative and just ridding yourself of it, releasing it, letting it go. Finally, the final chapter of this video, we're on to protection and prevention. So as I've already mentioned a few times, doing things like meditating and journaling can help prevent that buildup of negative energy from your own emotions, and having a regular routine of cleansing your space and cleansing yourself is a great way to prevent kind of stagnant energy or a buildup of what turns into a steaming pile of negativity manifested. But how do you actually deflect negative energy or deflect a targeted psychic attack? Just general protection. Well, I have talked about this in a previous video, but we're going to go over it here as well. Having words for yourself and for your space is a great way that you can use them to either deflect, absorb on your behalf, or even return to sender anything negative coming your way. Now, with all of these that I'm about to list out, keep in mind it is a good idea to cleanse and recharge these things every once in a while as part of maintenance. You can't really, for some of them, you can set them and forget them. Other ones, yeah, they need a little bit of upkeep. The first one is amulets, talismans, charm bags, etc. In general, any small item that can be worn or carried on your person can be charged with the intention of protection and therefore function as an amulet or a talisman. Some protective stones for protection jewelry or just to carry on your person would be obsidian, black tourmaline, malachite, dark agates, or tiger's eye. Silver is also a really great option for jewelry, and you can also select jewelry with like symbols or pendants that are symbolic of protection. And so that would be shields, that's kind of an obvious one, pentagrams, pentacles, a sword or dagger, teeth or claws, bones, helm of awe, predator animals like a wolf or a lion, arrows. The imagination is the limit. I did do a whole video on charging jewelry with specific intentions, so if you need a little refresher on that, it's linked down below. Similarly, charm or mojo bags can be kept on your person or placed in your space, whether that's your car or your home or even your workspace, and used for protective purposes. Simply take a small bag. I love those like sheer ones that you get when you order like a piece of jewelry online, although some finer herbs will fall out of those. If you don't have a little baggie like that, you can always just take a little square of fabric, place everything in the center, kind of bundle it up, pinch it together, and tie it off with some string or ribbon. And you can just fill it with all of the previously mentioned, you know, charms with symbols, herbs, and stones or crystals. I would recommend using oils sparingly or not using them at all because, well, one, like I've got a charm bag in my car for protection, and you know, cars get really hot, especially during summer, and sometimes that oil just absolutely reeks. It becomes very overwhelming. Or if you're keeping it in a pocket or in your bra, in a purse, in your suitcase, in, you know, whatever, it might kind of seep out and get on things in there and possibly stain them, or just, again, if it's a really strong scent, or, you know, protective oils don't always smell that good. So, you know, you just don't want it rubbing off on everything. So oils, use sparingly or not at all. Or if you really, really, really want to use oils, instead of using a charm bag, just use a jar. Next are perimeter wards. There are various items that you can set out along the perimeter of your property, or you can place them, you know, if you're like me, you live in an apartment or something, you don't have a yard to use, or you know, you don't want people in your complex going, what the hell is she doing? You can put things at your entrances, doorways, and windows to keep your space and therefore yourself protected. You can use red brick dust. I have a whole video on that, linked down below. You can use iron nails or railroad spikes that you kind of drive into the ground in the four corners of your property. That is an example of one that you can kind of just set and forget. You don't have to keep recharging. You can create a perimeter of salt or black salt, although I would recommend avoiding putting it on grass or plants because it can kill them. Graveyard dirt and, again, protective oils are great ways to do this. You can also grow plants with thorns or spines and place them, you know, either grow them around your house or put them in, you know, have potted plants and put them at your windows and your doors. I also like to use moon water to draw protective sigils on my windows and doors. Next up are witch bottles, which date back to the 17th century in England. They were commonly used by practitioners and non-practitioners alike to protect the creator from baneful magics. Take a small container, which can be sealed. Obviously, classically, this is a little glass bottle, but you can also use jars, and it can also be plastic, doesn't have to be glass. Just anything that you can securely seal up. First, you're going to place inside of it a piece of your DNA. The most popular one for this particular item is urine, but you can also use some of your hair or nail clippings. And then fill it with various sharp objects such as tacks, nails, pins, needles, broken glass, thorns, etc., etc. You can really just leave it at that, but if you want to add some more stuff, that's entirely up to you. Some recommendations are ritual ashes, graveyard dirt, knotted threads, seawater, vinegar, wine, salt, or black salt. When you're done with it, seal it up, and then you want to bury it in the furthest corner in your yard. If you do not have a yard, you can also hide it within your home, but make sure the spot is dimly lit, and keep in mind you're trying to hide it. So it should be in a place that people don't really go. It might be good to kind of tuck it underneath a sink in a bathroom that's not used that often, or up in a top corner of a closet shelf. Finally, mirrors. I actually have one in this window. Mirrors are great because you can either use them to just deflect, or you can use them to send the psychic attack back to sender. It really just depends on how you choose to charge it up and enchant it. I know some people, they're like, no, return to sender spells are kind of against their moral code, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. So it just, however you choose to enchant it is entirely up to you, but a mirror will definitely work. They also do not need to be visible. So if you want to tuck it into some bushes, that's fine, but it's great to hang them on the outside of your house. I have one up here propped facing outward in that window. The main thing you just want to remember with these is be careful how you angle them and where you place them, because you don't want them, you know, reflecting sunlight into a street where there's like cars going by and cyclists, where it could like completely blind them. So yeah. Now you know how to cleanse yourself. If you are interested in more information on cleansing and protecting your space, you can check out that video right here.